Well, welcome back to the Clerc podcast show. We have the one, the only, John Jabot back with us tonight. John, this is like your 6th time on the show, so how do you feel about coming back on?
Well, I even made the graphic for the show.
Yeah?
That was cool. Yeah, I was in there. I'm like, wow.
Well, of course.
Middle too.
Of course, John. You're on the most popular episode. You don't think you'd be on the graphic?
You know, I went to McDonald's before I almost died. And the lady says, "Hey, you're from that podcast, aren't you?" And I'm like, "What?" So I ran into one of the 7 people who listened to it, so I felt pretty
yeah.
You know?
7, that's high for the week, John. Jeez, it's only because you're here.
I tell my kids about it. It gets to 10, so.
Yeah. Great to have you, though. We do have to say one thing, though. We, for the sake of keeping this video on YouTube and on Apple, we are unable to use the actual word of what we're going to be talking about tonight, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Because anything to do with that, they have some kind of thing where that flags the video because they want to keep misinformation. They want to keep whatever. And so if we say that, it flags the video, and multiple people have told me just don't. We've said it before in multiple podcasts, but we're gonna see what happens here if we don't. It's gonna be hard.
Can we make just a keyword or something like fiddle faddle or?
Oh, I was thinking like virus. We could say virus or disease, but we can't actually say we can't say what it is.
I was gonna say we should have came up with a code word or something.
Well, we could come up with something now, but I'm just saying I don't want anything to happen to it for it to get flagged. But people know what we're talking about. I mean, this is like the main thing that's been on everyone's minds for weeks. Like a year now. It's been a year, hasn't it now, pretty much since this all started?
March.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And John, if you want to talk about what's happened, because a lot of stuff has happened, and I just want to hear your story because you've told me before, but if you want to tell it to everyone so they know what happened, if you want to go start it off right with that.
Yeah, I mean, I won't go in the nuts and bolts of it, but basically, I'm at home, and one of the people who live in my house was diagnosed with COVID. And
you just said it.
Nope, sorry.
Nah, I can go cut that out.
Yeah, well, was diagnosed with XYZ.
Yep.
The next day I get up, and me and my 2 little kids, 6 and 5, I took them over to Worthington to get tested. And by Monday, the results came back, and we were all positive.
Wow.
And so then in the meantime, my dad had called me, and he had said he'd had a bit of sniffles. Well, he ended up tested positive for COVID around the same time.
XYZ.
And a couple days before, sorry. Gosh,
it's hard not to say it, isn't it?
I'm
trying to keep track here.
the censorship that's going on right now, not to get off track, is ridiculous.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
It will be I'll take this gum out too. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Gum in. No, I mean, we'll get back to that. Let's talk more about that. But
yeah, let me write that down here.
Yeah. So anyways, he tested positive, and then on Sunday he went to the emergency room, and then they sent him home, which I think was a mistake. And then on Monday he went back, drove himself back in, and then he went in the hospital, and they moved him from Fairmont to Mankato, and I never saw him again.
Wow.
He died a week later, and yeah, that was it. Because I was sick, I couldn't go see him. And my kids couldn't go see him, and it was like he was there and just poof, that was it. And in the meantime, I was getting sicker, and that Saturday before he died, I went to the emergency room, and they basically said, "Well, you have COVID, you have XYZ pneumonia, but you're not sick enough to stay." So they sent me home. No medications, nothing. And part of the reason I did that is because I was afraid if I had to go in the hospital, who's going to take care of the kids? And so I thought, I got to get ahead of this thing. Well, they sent me home. And then on that Monday, my dad died. And then Tuesday, I got up and came down the stairs, and my oxygen was at 75, and it's supposed to be around 100. And so I'm huffing and puffing. And so finally, I ended up in the ER that morning. I was supposed to have a teleconference in the morning with the doctor. He got busy, just drove into the ER, and they did a CT scan, and it was terrible. COVID pneumonia worse. My oxygen was, having a hard time staying in the mid 80s. And so I come bearing slides. If you can see these here, I'll show you that on the screen.
Otherwise, you can send it. You can send it to me too, and I can put it in there.
I will.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's that's the normal lung. And then this is, Privacy Act, I guess, HIPAA. That's a lung that's been infected. I don't know if you can see.
Hold on,
very
hold
well,
it there a little bit longer for the
yeah.
light. Yeah, you
Yeah.
might have to send it to me, but you could kind of
Yeah.
tell. I saw the picture on. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw the
Yeah.
picture on your Facebook. I think you posted it, and
Yeah.
that is just insane. And what was the? Did they give you a percentage of like these are the odds of you not like living?
No, I mean, because doctors are pretty pragmatic, and he said, he goes, "You're very sick," and I feel well. When I was in the emergency room, my doctor calls me and he says, "Hey, I see you're in the emergency room," because he was supposed to have that teleconference. I said, "Yeah," and he said, "Well, I'm looking at your CT," and he said, "That's impressive," and I was like, "Impressive, like you can run a marathon tomorrow, impressive?" And he's like, "Impressive in the medical community means something different, like." Like if a cancer shows up on a scan, it's impressively showing up like that.
Oh.
And so he says, "What's the ER doctor think?" And I said, "Well, he hasn't talked to me yet." He said, "Well, if he tries to send you home, I'm going to have to fight him on that because you're very sick."
Mm.
And so, I was for 7 days before that, I was, taking 12 ibuprofen and probably as much Tylenol a day to get the fever under 102. I mean, I couldn't control it. The worst headache I've ever had in my life, and it's not close. I told someone the other day, it's like you get into your car and you hit your head. Sometimes you didn't get low enough. You ever done that before?
Yeah. Yep.
And nobody wants to admit they do that, but everybody does it.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, "No, what do you mean hit my head? No,
Never done that.
No, who does that? What kind of idiot does that?" But it's like that pain, but it just never subsides.
Oh, okay.
And I couldn't taste or smell anything. I still don't smell very well, and it's been it's been about 5 weeks.
Wow.
And or almost 6 weeks, I guess. And
was that one of your first? Not to cut you off, but was that one of your first signs? Was the or losing the smell, or was that
no?
Kind
that
of
was
it
probably,
all kind of came in at the same time?
Well, probably 3 or 4 days. I started to cough and I got a fever on that Tuesday, and then it kind of progressed. And by Wednesday, I couldn't taste or smell anything. And it just kind of came on like I was eating a banana or something. I was like, "This is weird,"
Yeah.
And it just kind of went away. And like I said, my smell still isn't back all the way. I mean, I go to eat foods and I can't really taste very well yet because, that's a big part of eating or tasting is the smell. And I really noticed it because I went out to my hot tub and I went to put chlorine in it. And it's a really strong chemical. You can't even smell it. I couldn't smell it at all. So I was like, "Oh, cripes."
Yeah.
So I ended up so my dad dies on that Monday and I end up in the emergency room and in the hospital on Tuesday, the 22nd of December. And I remember reading the doctor's report and he was like, "I note that patient is depressed." And I'm like, "Yeah, let's see. Gonna miss Christmas with my kids. My dad died yesterday. I'm terribly sick with COVID and I'm gonna have to spend Christmas in the hospital." So to answer your question, he didn't give me a percentage. He just said, "You're very sick. Here's the medicines we're gonna use." He noted that I was chubby, and had some blood sugar issues because I, eat like a pig. And which, I mean, I did. I was eating too much sugar and not taking care of myself that way. And that dexamethasone, that steroid they give you, it makes your blood sugar go way up.
Oh.
It's just one of the side effects. So he said, "You're going to have to take some insulin and all this kind of stuff," while I was in the hospital.
Yeah.
And so it was blood thinner in one arm, insulin in my stomach, taking blood 3 times a day. And what's really amazing about Mayo over in Fairmont is all their results go to a Mayo doctor first. That doctor in Rochester reviews it and then talks to the doctor in Fairmont. And so all your monitoring and everything goes to the mothership in Rochester, which is nothing against Fairmont, but it's just reassuring to know that Mayo and Rochester is involved because, they got an infectious disease doctor. They got all these different people working on treatments. And the doctor told me, he said, the nice thing about Mayo is that we're doing research too.
Yep.
And so if we find something, your treatment could change from 1 week to the next based on what we find in our own research.
Yeah.
And that's powerful. I mean, that's a powerful thing. And I have nothing but good things to say about the hospital. I was there from the 22nd to the 27th, 5 days. The first dose of remdesivir was a double and then 4 more after that. And, it was by that Tuesday when I got in there, I felt like, as bad as I felt, I thought I might die. I mean, I felt like I could die.
Wow.
I mean, it was just the most miserable. I wasn't breathing good, the headache, out of breath. And I think, like I said, if I could have rested more, if my dad wouldn't have been sick and my kids wouldn't have been sick, I think I probably could have rested, but it just wasn't to be. I was handling his stuff. And towards the end there, he kind of kind of gave up. I mean, he was so sick and he just, didn't want to be intubated and all those things. And the doctor asked me, he said, is there anything that you wouldn't want? And I'm like, dude, you can stick a 6-inch rod up my rear end if you have to, if that's one of the treatments that just came out. Cause I didn't want to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they maybe didn't think I was going to die. They never say that, but I didn't feel good. And when I came in Tuesday, I wasn't sure how it was going to go. If I'm being honest, I mean,
Yep.
I've never felt like that in my life. Like, here's a situation where this could go either way. And I think that, that remdesivir, even though it's approved for coronavirus or for XYZ, it's not approved for general use on things like this, but they approved it because they found that it worked with people. And for me, it did. By that Thursday, I started getting my taste back a bit. And that's when I started feeling like, you know what, I think I'm going to be all right.
So you're in the hospital for 5 days. We were hearing a lot on the news about ERs and everything being overrun. Was that the case there? Was there a ton of people in there with XYZ, or was it normal routine?
No, I mean, the hospital was full. They had to find a room for me there. Otherwise
Really?
I would have had to go to Mankato or Rochester. Yeah, they did have to find a room.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
I don't
that
know
is
if
a
they
big
made
issue.
one. Oh, it is. It was at that time. I mean, you're talking December. Things had really ratcheted up by then. And, there's always going to be people that say, oh, this is a hoax or it's the flu. I mean, that's ridiculous talk. That's absolutely ridiculous. I'm telling you, I've had the flu. I would take the flu every day of the week for a month because it was nothing like this. I mean, body aches, you can barely walk. You're having a hard time breathing. The headache is unrelenting. I don't know. I look at it this way. My dad died and he missed the vaccine by about a month and a half. But I'm happy if I had to get it. And I wore masks and did all those things. And I'm happy if I had to get it, I got it in December this year versus March or April last year, because I don't know how it would have turned out.
So now that you've had it and gotten through it, and it was a lot of people have different experiences with it. Obviously yours was bad. What does that change about your perspective? Because you were on the podcast right when XYZ was starting to ramp up, when we talked about this a while back. And how was your opinion on it changed since then?
Well, I just think, I have a lot of respect for businesses that are trying to operate during this. But I think things like having a group of people together, that's huge, and people not wearing masks or just kind of hanging out together, I think it's dangerous. And the thing about this disease or this illness is that you don't know which person's going to get it bad. And so where I'm terribly sick, you might not get anything. And so that's the frustrating thing. I just think that, do masks work? I don't know. I mean, we all wore masks and it didn't seem to matter. And what they say, there's just a few things you see, like my kids, they didn't get hardly sick at all. And so I'm happy about that, because that would have been a whole nother thing in itself. And I talk to people in government and I say, if let's say there's a husband and wife and they have kids who get COVID, everybody has COVID. If the husband and wife or a single parent even has to go to the hospital, who watches those COVID kids? Or
You're good. I'm just keeping track.
Who watches the XYZ? Who watches them?
Uh-huh.
I mean, who takes them? I mean, I don't really want human services touching my kids just because I don't think that's the best answer. But who ends up doing it? That's the part that's scary for people is, I was in a position where I had to leave.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I was begging to go to the hospital. It's
unfortunate because it really threw a wrench in everything that we're used to normally doing. And so a lot of people, it became a political issue when it became a problem for people that didn't get sick with it, I think. When businesses started to shut down, when people were told they can't do certain things that they normally do, that's when it became an issue. And that's when I think it became political. And it still is political. I mean, it's hard to know if the decisions they're making now are political. Like, are they things that could have been done when Trump was in office and they waited until he was out to do? That's something that the right really thinks, and the left is obviously going to say that's crazy. But if you don't think that this whole thing is political, I think you just haven't been following it enough, because it's became very political, which is too bad.
Well, I think it's like this. I'm happy that the people who get sick sometimes don't get very sick, because I wouldn't wish this on anybody ever. With that being said, the problem is when people do, they hardly get any sickness. They propagate this. Well, then it's nothing. I had it and it's nothing. When there's a guy like me who's never spent a day in the hospital in his life since he was like 2 years old, almost wiped out. My dad, he used to bike 2 or 3 miles a day on his bike, summer, winter, fall, every season. He was 82. He would ride his bike 3 miles a day without fail. I mean, the guy he was a physical specimen at 82, and it took a week to kill him.
Wow.
So, I mean, I guess none of these, it's kind of like anything. Until you have a personal loss or an incident that affects you, you probably think that's someone else's problem. And, it's just not someone else's problem anymore. And like I said, the downside for me is when people don't get very sick, even like Donald Trump, this is no big deal. I got the greatest medicine and now I'm fine and you don't fear it or whatever. And then he's having rallies with 80,000 people with no masks. I just think that's irresponsible. I just do. And I wasn't hanging out at restaurants, even though I live half a mile from Iowa. I wasn't going to restaurants. I wasn't going to Mall of America. I wasn't hanging out in places. I went to work, came home. I get my groceries. They deliver them to my car because I didn't want to make my dad sick. As it turned out, we didn't even go over to his house for Thanksgiving. He lived 2 blocks away. Now it's like, I should have.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, people ask about the vaccine. Yeah, I'm going to get it. And are you afraid of it? What I'm afraid of is getting corona again, or
Yeah.
I'm afraid of getting sick again.
Yeah.
And you know what? If this changes my DNA, I mean, I already have 5 kids. Who cares? My DNA is out there. I mean, I've damaged half the world, I guess. I mean, I just think it's like this: you just can't win, because the people that say they don't want everything shut down are then saying you can't force me to get a vaccine, and it's like, don't be an idiot. If you don't want it, that's fine. Keep that to yourself. Let everybody else do their research.
Yeah.
Why kill that? Like I said, if my dad would have been able to, just hang on another month, he wouldn't probably be dead right now.
Mm-hmm. That is, I was going to ask you that. Do you think because you said your dad got sick and then there was a period there where he wasn't right away in the hospital, do you think if he would have been in there right away that it would have been a different story?
I don't like to think about it because I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, he went to the hospital and sent him home. And, there's protocol that they follow to keep you. It's based on your oxygen. And, they were doing x-rays of lungs, which will show COVID pneumonia, but it doesn't,
it's tough to
run it down, throw it down the river. We can even start over, but
no, it's all right.
When they test you for that pneumonia, now they're doing CTs instead of that because it doesn't show the layers. I mean, that thing I showed you was a CT scan. I mean, the x-ray showed that I had pneumonia, but it didn't show the extent of it. So I go home. The thing is, there was a snowstorm the day after I went there and they closed the hospital. Well, if that's the case, do I just die at home? Or do I wait so long that I get to the hospital and just, struggle? I mean, the problem is most people don't take it serious in that respect. I am very sensitive to my body and how I feel. And I knew on Saturday that I wasn't well. I mean, my lungs were wheezing. I couldn't lay on either side. I mean, I knew I wasn't well.
Wow.
And I don't know, man. I don't know how to convince people to be serious about it. And then again, how do you convince people to take a vaccine? I know that no vaccine's ever been done in this amount of time. But if you think the government's trying to kill you and that's how they're going to do it, you haven't lived in this country with an active brain your whole life. Well, because, the government, they said, I read an article once that, in the 1950s or early 60s, they sprinkled radiation over like the Jackson, Wyndham, kind of that river area.
Really?
To see what the radiation would do to people and to the animals. Oh, that's a true story. You can Google that.
Shut up. There's no way.
The U.S. Army did that.
You can Google this?
Yeah, if you type in like U.S. Army radiation testing, Wyndham or whatever. I read it probably a couple of years ago.
Just sounds ridiculous.
I know it does, but my point is this: the government has tested our soldiers, has stuck them with vaccines for years and years and years. And if they wanted to kill people, I mean, how easy would it be just to kill people?
No, I'm not. Yeah,
you'll have to dig a little for that, but that's a true story.
Yeah, the thing, I mean, one of the questions I've always kind of wondered, not that I've heard a lot of crazy conspiracy theories about like what they're going to put in the vaccine, like they're going to track you. They're going to put a tracker in the I'm like, first of all, like that just sounds absolutely ridiculous. Like, why would the government want it? They can already do that with your phone. They don't need.
Well, why do they care?
Yeah,
What makes a guy that lives in a trailer park in Oklahoma?
Yeah.
What makes people think that they care what he's doing?
Yeah. I think it's
I
one of
mean-
those things people like to jump to crazy conclusions or whatever. What I'm curious though is why are some of these tech companies super interested in helping? Like, why has Bill Gates been so involved with this whole thing? Is one thing that I'm curious about. You know what I mean? Maybe it's just because he's such a
Yeah.
charitable guy, but I don't know.
Well, it would be foolish to think that Bill Gates doesn't have any holdings in pharmaceuticals. As of a month ago, he's the largest owner of farmland in the United States.
Really?
He owns 243,000 acres of farmland. Does that mean he wants to go out and plow beans into the ground? No. but when you see a guy like him or Warren Buffett, they're invested in things that will make money. So on one side of it, this vaccine and anybody who's invested in it is going to make big money. Secondly, if you follow Bill Gates at all, for the last 15 years, him and his wife have vowed to spend all their money eliminating disease and famine in Africa and around the world. So this is not the first time, he worked on a polio vaccine in Africa. This isn't the first time him and his wife have been involved with curing disease. And so they'll come up, what is Bill Gates doing all this for? I mean, this guy built a computer out of his garage. He's not, now he has money. That doesn't make him some, secret deal maker behind the scenes. I mean, if you get used to making $4 billion a year and you find an investment, wouldn't you do it too? I mean, I don't know. Like, I just think he's a big nerd who really, like he said, he committed his money to spend all of his money before they die on charitable causes.
I have heard that. Yeah. You're no fun though, John. Where he's supposed to be an evil genius. You're no fun here saying he's just a nerdy guy that wants to help.
Well, he may be. I mean, maybe that's his disguise.
Yeah.
Maybe I've been tricked to think that he's an okay guy.
I've heard about the polio thing. I don't want to get too crazy here, but I've heard people send me stuff and people send me conspiracy theories. I've heard that the polio thing in Africa, he actually, I don't even know what the whole story was, but it was something like he gave the people in Africa polio, and then they needed his whatever they designed or whatever to save them because it was he put it there. That's what I've heard. I don't know the whole thing about it. It's just these, there's conspiracy theories about everything. So people might bring that up.
When it comes to polio, it's interesting. I think I told you this too. Like the man who invented the polio vaccine, Jonas Salk, he donated that to science. Him and his family made $0 on that. There's been an active polio vaccine for probably 70 years. And he didn't make a penny on it, So I think it's interesting that how things have kind of changed for the betterment of the country. Pfizer stepped up. We're going to make a vaccine. Yep. After you were given $1.5 billion, you did.
Yeah. Do you think? No, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, I mean, you know me. I love a good conspiracy as much as anybody. But at the end of the day, if it prevents people from getting COVID, I asked someone the other day, what would be the worst thing that could happen from a vaccine that would stop you from doing it? And they always mention, DNA. What do you know about DNA, Dr. Know-it-all?
Yeah.
These people know that DNA exists. They couldn't spell it. And I ask people, if you can't spell it, I don't want you talking about it.
If you don't know what DNA stands for, you shouldn't be talking about what it is. You know what I mean? Because
deoxyribonucleic acid.
Is that what? Okay, see, I don't know anything about it, so
Ethan's not talking.
I'm not talking about it. I mean, we can make.
Well, it's just because I fight these knuckleheads online consistently, and I've tried. When I got to the hospital, I just said, namaste. I need to try and stay away from some of that stuff. But these anti-vax people, no vaccine for any reason. I had a grandpa who had polio, who walked with a limp his entire life. I had a friend whose dad had polio and lived in an iron lung. I remember people in my family saying they wouldn't let their kids out to play in the 40s because there was polio around, and they wondered if it was in the dirt, in the water, in the air. They'd keep them inside. I mean, people don't understand the panic that polio caused. It wasn't just disabling people in their legs and arms. It was actually making their lungs stop work and killing them.
Yeah.
And so, I guess when we stare down the barrel of this thing, nobody wants to believe that illness hurts and kills a lot of people. And maybe you won't believe it until it happens to you, which is sad. I mean, I respected it before this, but now, of course, I said a year ago, I said, I told someone that I think a coronavirus is going to kill my dad, and it did.
Wow. Well, and
Sad prediction.
yeah. Well, and John, you've always been against the anti-vaxxer. I mean, I remember having you on the podcast a while back, and you were talking about ridiculous how people are anti-vaccination. Where these are people that don't have any medical background really, that are pulling very rare cases out. And bringing those to the forefront, which is always a poor argument. If you bring out like a 1 in a million thing and blame that as, oh, if anyone gets it, this is what's going to happen to you. That seems to be the argument for the anti-vax crowd is, they'll pull out like for example, polio or whatever. It might have affected somebody negatively. The vaccine did something horrible to somebody. But what about the millions and millions of people that don't have polio because of the vaccine,
Right.
So you're always going to have the anti-vax crowd, I feel like, which is kind of crazy nowadays with everything on the internet.
Well, it comes down to credibility. And I think with vaccines, there's always been side effects. There was that idiot over in England who propagated that. And, Jenny McCarthy propagated that stupid thing where, vaccines cause autism, which is absolutely untrue. And that lady's been discredited and she's had her medical license taken away. But she ran around 10, 12 years ago and said that don't take vaccines because it causes autism.
Have they ever caused? Has there even been one confirmed case that has happened?
Well, it's really hard to determine. They're saying that vaccines don't cause autism, but there are people that end up developing autism after they've had a vaccine. That doesn't mean it came from the vaccine. I mean,
could be genetic.
Well, here it comes down to this. I think most Americans today don't trust government. And so anything that comes out of government isn't going to, I think there's a lack of faith. And I think our last president, I agreed with a lot of the stuff he said. I think sowing the distrust in government was the worst thing he could have done. Not that I super trust government, because I think there are, forces in our government that are working against us. But I mean, when you kind of propagate or push out this idea that you can't trust any government and they're out to get you and I'm the only one that'll save you, that's a really hard thing to, because people hear that and they think, oh yeah, government's going to do this. And look now. I mean, we talked about a vaccine for a year and there's people, I won't touch it. And it's like, do you want your bars and restaurants open? Do you want your grandma to live? Do you want your spouse to live? How about your kids? Yeah. If you want those people to live, you got to decide if the calculated risk is worth it. Yeah. And I'll tell you this, if you don't vaccinate your family and someone dies, don't become crying to me. Don't go crying to everyone else. You had your chance. I wish I'd have gotten my chance. I was a week away from getting the vaccine myself. And, because I'm a firefighter, I was a week away.
Have you got it yet?
I can't get it for 3 months after you're ill.
So. Oh, I didn't know that. Why is that?
Because you have the antibodies and they're not sure that people they're not sure the vaccine would help people who already have the antibodies because you have them.
Oh, okay.
As they diminish, like within 3 months, they said I could take the vaccine.
So
I have a dose that's saved for me. So
you probably be good for a while now is what they're thinking.
Yeah, they think, well, it's all new, they say there's studies that it's 3 months. They said if you develop the antibodies, and again, not a doctor, don't know what all this stuff means, but if you develop the antibodies and the T cells, which is an immune function, if you develop those, you may be immune for years.
Really?
I don't want to take the chance. If they think the vaccine will stop it, I'm not taking, dude, I'll tell you what, I never want to be sick like that again. Yeah. It's like I said, it's the only time in my life that I ever felt like this might be it.
I remember, John, when you were in the hospital and you posted that picture on Facebook, I think you had tears in your eyes. I'm like, damn, that's scary because I've never seen John like that. I always see John, happy guy.
Energetic, happy.
Yeah, messing around with us.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I've never been scared like that in my life. And it really wasn't even about just dying and my life being over because, I'm not selfish that way. It was more, I am a little bit, but it was more of, I got little kids. I think leaving them, that's a disgrace. I think it's, if you can, I don't know. I was destined to get well, I guess, but at the time I didn't know it. And I tell people, was I dying? I don't know. I never felt like that. And what does dying feel like?
Yeah.
I didn't want a tube shoved into me. Yeah. I didn't want the intubation. I didn't want, they were talking about, different masks you can wear. When they did that CT, I didn't know this, but I'm terribly claustrophobic. I learned that. Oh, that's terrible. Put you in that tube. And I'm like, okay. She goes starting her thing. I said, you got to back this out. Well, then they give you this medicine so that it shows up on the CT.
Yeah.
And she says, well, I got to warn you, it's going to make, you ever had a CT before?
I have one. I've had one. Yeah.
Yeah. They put that stuff and it makes you warm.
Yeah.
And then I said, I got to be honest. I think maybe I'm peeing right now. And she goes, oh no, that's normal. You might feel like you were going to pee. I said, this is important information to tell me before I think I've also peed.
Yep.
Because I'm almost screaming like a girl in the CT tube. Come on, I'm claustrophobic, I guess. Get me out. And then after I get in there, I'm like, oh, I'm okay. Wait. I think maybe I peed. And she goes, nope, you haven't peed. That's normal.
Yep.
And I'm like, there's a list of things you must tell people before you get in the tube. AKA, it's very tight, especially if you're fatty. Number two, if you feel you take this medicine, it's going to make you feel hot. / you might feel like you're peeing.
Yep.
I don't know how much of this I should say. It's quite embarrassing, but
it's pretty funny.
I'll tell you, it's one of those things. I'm in that gown with no back in it, and it's you're kind of at the mercy of the folks that take care of you, and it's a real humbling experience. I mean, when you can't really take care of yourself in a lot of ways.
Yep.
And I can't say enough about the doctors and nurses at Fairmont at Mayo Clinic Health System. I mean, I feel like they saved my life.
Wow. Well, we got to give huge props to all the medical people, the doctors and nurses. I mean, they've had to work unbelievable hours probably during this whole thing.
And the risk to their health. I mean, they're surrounded by corona all the time.
Yeah. Yep.
And just think about this. You are going to go to work and you're going to be faced with an illness that could kill you, but you still have to do that job every day with a thin piece of fiber, whatever, over your face protecting you.
Well, hopefully they have like real an actual mask that would like protect. Because I know the doctors, back in the early beginning, they were telling you not to wear a mask because they needed all them for the hospitals.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that they were wearing like actual ones. People are wearing like bandanas, which I've heard doesn't do shit. Yeah. Like you can wear.
Yeah, no, they don't.
They don't.
They make you look like you're ready to rob a stagecoach.
Yeah.
I saw a guy early in the pandemic. He was up at the bar here, and he was an African American guy. And I said, you're going to take this the wrong way, maybe, but I said, if you'd walked into this bar wearing that mask like a year ago, you'd probably already be cuffed and stuffed, because he looked like he was going to rob the place. Yeah. I mean, and he laughed. Yeah, fortunately, he laughed. I'm not a racist, but I just thought, dude, I said, you're sitting there wearing a mask. I mean, you walk into a bank, and the rule used to be don't wear a mask in a bank because immediately the cashiers go like this and hit the button.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
And now it's like, no, please wear a mask. And I'm like,
crazy
I'm surprised there hasn't been more bank robberies.
I know. I'm surprised that crime has been. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of other factors that went into that too, with crime rising in certain cities. But that I am surprised bank robberies didn't go up during this whole thing because you could probably easily get away with it.
Yeah. What'd the guy look like? He was wearing a blue hanky. I mean, glasses and a blue hanky.
Yeah.
He didn't give us coronavirus. He held a gun to us. We felt safe.
John, I wanted to ask you, John, because I have a theory, and I've kind of stuck with this theory for a while now on the origin of this whole thing. I am very strong to believe that China manufactured this in a lab and sent it to everyone else as a bioweapon or whatever to mess with literally everyone else. Because have you seen the numbers in China? Have you seen the daily cases? It's like 20 yesterday, 15, 10.
Who knows if they're reporting them correctly?
I think they're lying. I think that there part of me believes, and it sounds like more and more research is coming out to kind of back up. If you would have said that like 2 months ago, which I was kind of saying, it sounded like a conspiracy. But now it's sounding more like this was potentially made in a lab in Wuhan because there's two actual labs there, like stage 4, whatever they're called, labs, and people are saying that this might have actually came from there, and they're sending it out to mess with like literally the world, and mainly the USA because we're capitalists and all this stuff. What do you think about that?
Oh, 1,000,000% agree. And Tucker Carlson said this in April and May. He said we have actual evidence that this was created in a lab. And one of the things you have to look at is, number one, the Chinese government's a bunch of dirtbags. And they are a patient group of dirtbags. And I don't blame the Chinese people. It's the Chinese government.
Exactly.
It's a patient group of dirtbags who are waiting their time to try and take out the United States.
Yep.
That's what I believe. Number two, name another illness. And I've asked health professionals this. Name another illness that completely takes away your taste and smell. Name another illness that targets specific types of people. And they're thinking on blood type. And name another illness that does that. It almost doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And to me, I thought it was laughable that they said this came from bat brains. Yeah. I mean, people have been eating bat brains for a bazillion years. Not here,
really?
Because,
yeah,
it's disgusting.
Yeah,
some of their food is disgusting.
We have McDonald's.
People can say whatever. Yeah, right. I mean, if I want to eat something here and get a stomach ache, I don't have to open up a bat's head. But listen, you don't get to be my size by not chain smoking a few quarter pounders. By the way, a commercial, that quarter pounder deluxe is one of the best burgers they make now.
Oh yeah.
Did you get your
McRib? McRib.
I got one McRib, and that's what upset me probably 7th on the list is I got one damn McRib. And then of course I got sick and it's like McRib is back. And I'm like, yeah, for everybody that isn't me. I mean, you sit in that hospital room and you're just like, okay, can I have a visitor? No. How about somebody, no, nobody. You just sit there like, and there's only so much TV you can watch. That TLC is a wasteland, man.
Oh,
it's like find the biggest misfits you can find.
Uh-huh.
I mean, if I thought all it took was gaining 300 more pounds to get on a show, that sounds like fun. I'll just sit and eat all the scraps from the McDonald's garbage. But no, I totally think that was a bioweapon that got away. I don't know that they intentionally did it. I think it's a bioweapon that got away, and then they super lied about it.
Yeah.
I just think, if they were going to have an accident, they ain't going to say anything. And to be honest, this country has to be serious about China.
Yeah. And
our current president is not serious about China.
No.
You say what you want about Trump, but Trump didn't pull punches with those folks because he realized the threat. Biden's talking about Russia this and Russia that. Okay, Russia, while they have nuclear weapons, is not an economic threat to us.
No.
In no way, shape, or form.
No.
And not to say that they aren't dangerous, because they kill reporters and they poison people, and they're on the list of terrible people. They're in that top 5.
Yep.
I mean the government, not necessarily Russians in general.
Yeah.
But because that's the other thing I hear people say, no, the Chinese people. No. The Chinese government, which is utterly corrupt and has been out to take out the United States since probably around Korea.
Oh, for sure.
When we got involved with Korea, so
people are like, "Oh, you can't! Oh, I can't believe you're saying that Chinese would do that." I'm like, "Well, like you said, I'm talking about the government, and these are it's the same government that has concentration camps set up right now. Not even like a long time ago. They have concentration camps set up right now to take out the Uyghurs or whatever. They're trying to get rid of them.
Muslims.
Are they? Is it?
And Muslims. It's the Muslims in the country. They have concentration camps.
What I thought they were called like Uyghurs or.
Well, they have the old what did they call them in Russia?
I thought there was a what is the name of those the people there? Let me look it up quick here just so we get it right.
They have the Gulag in Russia. That's basically what they were.
The Uyghur is what they're called. Uyghur. The Uyghurs in China are recognized as native to the I'm probably slaughtering every one of these words. Xinjiang. Anyway, they're trying to put them in these camps, like they're called re-education camps. They're pretty much work camps. That's the same government that's doing that. So why would a bioweapon be that far out of reach? Like, I can't believe people are standing up for China when they're horrible.
Well, and since Biden became president, now the Chinese have been in Taiwan's airspace a couple times, and the United States has said unequivocally, if Taiwan is ever attacked by the Chinese, the U.S. will defend them.
Yeah.
Period. Well, going back to the 1990s, Britain should never have given Hong Kong back to the Chinese.
Oh, I didn't even know they had control of it.
Oh yeah, Britain. Well, because of their colonialism, they controlled Hong Kong for 150 years.
Really?
That was a major trading port over there, and then the English agreed to give Hong Kong back to the Chinese, which is just a terrible mistake. I mean, the Chinese their government is enemy number 1, and we're going to figure that out.
Oh, for sure.
And people need to open their eyes because there's bad stuff afoot there.
people, I think with Biden being president, it's no mystery that he's friendly with the Chinese, but we're really going to find out in the next 4 years how friendly he is with the Chinese. And I think people are going to realize, this may have been a mistake. Biden's not the right guy to handle these foreign, threats, because they are threats. Listen to this, though, John. I've just read this today. Came out a couple days ago. China is actually spreading conspiracy theories. Maybe you've heard this, that the virus was created in American labs and that a U.S. created vaccine is killing the elderly. This is what they are promoting on state media, that we developed the virus in Fort Detrick. And they have a Chinese social media platform because they can't use anything else because they got to control everything. Weibo, and they're trying to say, they're telling everyone that it was developed at the Maryland Army base, and we're the problem. We're the reason that this whole thing spread. That even, see right there, it even shows you that they'll do whatever it takes to blame anything on us and make the U.S. the scapegoat when they're really the problem here. This could have easily been avoided if China would have handled it better, I feel like.
Well, if they would, I think they were developing weapons they shouldn't have. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it was leaked or not, but let's assume it was leaked. I think they were afraid of the repercussions of actually admitting some guilt.
Yep.
Because to be honest, if this was ever found out that they intentionally did it, World War III isn't a big enough statement for it, because it would be World War III.
Oh yeah.
It would definitely be an armed confrontation aimed at taking out the Chinese government. I just absolutely believe that.
Every country would team up and help take out China if that was the case.
Well, and I think I think the weapon they'd use against the Chinese, if it wasn't an armed confrontation, would be starvation. Okay, every food import that you get is now gone.
Yep.
Now figure out how you're going to feed 7 billion people. That country would starve out in 2 months. They don't have enough food. That's the reality of it. They buy 1 million hogs. What is it? 1 million hogs a day from us?
I've heard crazy numbers. Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous amounts of food. If we chopped off that food, it would be over. And that's where I think then it would become an armed conflict, because they would starve.
And
so the Chinese know that we hold the cards in that respect. They do. That's why they poke at us. I mean, they've tried. I have friends who've gone over to like Vietnam and to China, and they've tried helping them build hog confinements.
Really?
And they will build it because they want them to have the technology there. So they'll build hog confinements, and then in all the hog confinements, if you've ever been in one here, they're super clean. I know they're filled with poop, but you go into the place and you have to shower in. You have to shower when you leave. You got to wear a suit. I mean, it's very much controlled for bacteria, because hogs are so similar to us DNA-wise that we can give them disease and they can give us disease. Well, anyways, they go over to China and build these facilities, and within 6 months, all the hogs are dead because they're not taking care of the hygiene side of things.
Really?
Well, when you got 1 million people living in 4 square miles, I mean, disease. Well, that's what it is.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
What they say, 40 cities over 1 million people. I mean, it's ridiculous amounts of people.
Yeah.
And, so it's scary. I worry for my kids, just because like I said, I don't know this current administration, if they take it serious. I just don't.
It's and talking about some other things that are going on right now with the current administration, political climate. We were talking earlier about it, censorship that has been going on. It seems like every day more and more. And I have seen it on both sides, but I'd say mainly right-wing people are getting taken off Twitter, YouTube, any social media, Facebook, because they have differing perspectives, opinions, whatever it might be. People call it whatever they want, alternative facts, if they want to say that. Just because they don't agree with them, though, or that they think that is 100% wrong, they're taking them off, which I am 100% against. This whole podcast is based on free speech, say whatever you want, whether we agree with you or not. You have the right in this country to say it. And that is why I cannot believe they took the president of the United States off of all these social media acts after, the whole, I mean, obviously the Capitol riot thing was ridiculous. Blaming that all on Trump, though, is, I think, ridiculous as well. He did not help, but I don't think you can blame the whole thing on him and take him off all this stuff for that.
Well, the media, let's start off. The media are lazy.
Yep.
They're lazy. They don't do their job anymore.
No.
And a guy like Trump was throwing stuff out every day. And Ben Franklin, and I'll kind of summarize what he said, 270 years ago. Ben Franklin says, at the end of the day, the free flow of information is important for a democracy. If you disagree with it, then it's your job to prove that it isn't true.
Yep.
It doesn't mean you eliminate the people, because the king would do that. You eliminate people who disagree or propagate ideas that aren't true. It's your job in the media, and it's your job as a citizen. If you say, hey, XYZ, and I say, no, that's not true, and it's not me chopping your head off, it's me saying, here's why it isn't true. That's how the give and take. And the social media in different places, they don't want that give and take. And for whatever reason, I just don't get this, where like Amazon and all these big companies, they're so for the Democratic president, but they are going to tax the hell out of corporations.
Yep.
And it's like, what are you doing? And I heard someone say the other day, when you have $1 billion, you didn't make that, you've taken that from somebody. And I feel like that. I mean, imagine being a billionaire. What is it? What's so right with the system that they became a billionaire, and what's wrong with the system that, a quarter of Minnesota receives some form of assistance?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that we should share the wealth. I'm not a socialist.
Yeah.
But, when we have the bottom of society income-wise struggling to get by every month, and because of coronavirus, and they think throwing us $600 is a proper way to take care of people, it's the same idiots in Congress who thought that having an $8,000 deductible for your health insurance is going to save you from bankruptcy. Because if you have a chronic illness and you have it for 3 years, there's $24,000 you've spent. You're
done.
And you're still sick, and guess what? Your savings are gone. The problem is that we're not willing to throw out the real bums, the ones in Congress, or this Patrick Leahy who's been in Congress since 1994 or 84.
All of them. I mean,
Mitch McConnell and Pelosi, they look like they're walking skeletons. Like, what are these guys doing in here? Chuck Schumer, they're all 150 years old. I don't know why. I mean, not saying the age has anything to do with it, but I think to get some younger, more people that understand the modern political climate better, can relate more, I think might help than getting these, 150-year-old people out of there, because it's just crazy that they've been in there.
Have you ever walked into a nursing home and, let's say people there, most of them are between 60 and 90 years old. Have you ever walked into a nursing home, found one of them, even if they were really with it, did you say, that's a person who can speak what's best for me?
No.
Hell no.
No.
In California, an 80-year-old Pelosi, who looks like she's drunk half the time, is their representative. And it's like, the system is set up for failure, because the longer they keep those jerks in, the more power that they give each other.
Yep.
And then you got a person like Pelosi, who is absolutely derelict in her job. And an elitist.
Yep.
And she shouldn't be in that position. And I'm sorry, nothing against 75 to 80-year-old people. But to say that there isn't cognitive decline when you're in your 70s and 80s isn't true. Why wouldn't you want somebody that's closer to your age, that has a clear understanding of things, being in that position?
Yeah.
Why do we send these same people back to Congress? And the problem is like, well, my representative's fine. It's California's or it's Oregon's or whatever. Maybe. But if you're not willing to throw your own bum out, what are you doing?
Yeah. And the craziest part about this entire thing is that how long they've been there for, and then you look at their groups and stuff, how much money they've made, you start to realize that this entire thing, politics, and when you get up into that high of government, it's not about your policies or anything. It's about how many people behind you have the money to put you to that level. Because it's not about policy. It's not about any of that. It's about, I heard Nancy Pelosi just spent $1 million on Tesla stock right before Biden decided to introduce all electric cars from now on for the government fleet. Do you think that was a coincidence? Probably not. Like I feel like it's all money decisions that come in, which is horrible.
Well, and I would chop those people off at the knees. If I was governor or president, the first thing I would do is I would say, here, we're going to work on our first priority is term limits for you folks.
Yep.
And if you won't accept that, I'm going to make an executive order that says when you're out of politics, you're out of that office, you are forbidden for 15 years for being a lobbyist. Because they build all that credibility in Congress. Yep. They get out for one of these drug companies or gun rights or gay rights or whatever group they're supporting. and they go back and they it's people they're friends with.
Yep.
And they say, come on, we're buddies. I'll give you this. I'll give you that. You'll help me, right? I mean, that's the wrong kind of relationship. And those people should be banned from doing lobbying work. They just should be.
Yep.
And nobody will have the balls and stand up and do it.
No. Well,
we just got weak leadership. It's just weak.
It's crazy in this country that for how long things have been the same. Like, it's like no matter what president, everyone thought Trump would come in and he shook a lot of things up, but you still have these just ridiculous people in there who just should not be in there. And you like you said, how do they not have term limits? How can Nancy Pelosi or Mitch McConnell or all these people, how can they be in there for 50 or 60 years without? Are there no term limits for those positions?
No, none.
Really?
And this is it's funny because speaking of what you were just saying, people said Trump's this radical. Well, let's see. Trump lowered our taxes. He cared about border security. Now he said a lot of goofy shit.
Oh, for sure.
He's sitting on Twitter at 4 a.m. taking a Duke, and he's sending out 17 different rant and Raven. And it's like, could you picture Biden doing that? First off, Biden, he's had his 6 cup of coffee, but he doesn't even know how to work the texting machine.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the thing. He said a lot of goofy shit, which diluted his message. If he could have just stuck with the main things, we're going to make sure that education in school involves history and believing in your country. To me, there's nothing wrong with thinking this is a good country. To think that most of this country isn't racist, because it isn't.
No.
And these people will say most of this country is racist. Really? I mean, 4 years ago, we elected a black president. We just elected a black vice president.
Yeah, it's
and
crazy.
That's why when they start saying, the Trump voters are all racist, I reject that completely.
Don Lemon, what an idiot.
Well, he's always been an idiot, but what they're doing is, they're weaponizing those people who didn't vote for Biden. They're weaponizing them. The more you push people, and especially the ones that are a little unstable, they're going to act out.
Yep.
And I don't want to hear any of these Democrats saying, we tried to stop this and we just couldn't. Nope, you could stop it. Stop throwing all those good people down the rabbit hole with these idiots who people like storm the Capitol.
Yeah.
You can't do that. So
that was an unbelievable thing. But I want to get your opinion on the censorship, because you have, I've heard the argument, I've seen both sides of it. The argument on the left is Twitter is a private company, and if you break their terms of service, they can kick you off. And to that I say, well, Twitter has become like a, what do you want to call it? Like a town hall for people. And the president of the United States getting kicked off of there, that was like the number one way for him to get to his supporters without going through the media bullshit, without them twisting the story or whatever. So if you completely remove him from all that stuff, it just isn't fair when anybody else, all the liberals can be on there, all the left, and you can't have the own president of the United States on there. I don't agree with that at all. What are your thoughts on the Trump getting removed and censorship in general?
Just let people say what they want to say. I mean, not all speech is protected. I mean, speech that's dangerous to people, but the problem is who says what's dangerous? Twitter says he was dangerous. I mean, at the end of the day, aren't we all responsible for our own actions?
Yeah.
To me, it's a slippery slope. It's kind of what I said about, when we go back to like when Minnesota banned smoking inside restaurants. I said back then, I go, this is a bad thing. And, I had people in my family who died from lung cancer. And why would you say that? Because when government can tell you what you can do in a certain place, nobody gives a shit when it's smokers. But now when people have to put a mask on, how dare they say this? Well, we let them kick smokers out 10 years ago. People only care when it affects them. And let me get this straight. I hate the fact that people could smoke in restaurants and bars because those workers are put at risk. Let me make that clear. But should we let government control what we do? And, where's our government standing up to Twitter and all these different places saying, you can't do that. Change the rules. And there's a way to change the rules. So they actually have to, they have to basically allow this free speech. They have to allow this, because like when you have a CBS or NBC, if you have a candidate that is given time to speak by state law, and I think federal law, you have to allow the other candidate the same amount of time.
Really?
They didn't allow that.
No.
And so if they would hold those to what they call publisher or like journalistic standards, they could hold those companies accountable. Well, you can kiss that goodbye. You think any of those Democrats are going to allow that now? Hell no. And then the guy that runs Twitter, what a bum. He just looks like a hobo. And that's disrespectful to a hobo. I love trained train homeless people. I love those folks. They're the friendliest folks ever with their little knapsacks and stuff.
I don't know. I mean, because I've seen the interviews with the guy. His name's it's Jack, right? I can't think of his last name. I think it's Jack.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem.
His last name's Mehoff, isn't it?
Yeah, he doesn't seem like a horrible guy, but I think he's surrounded by so many far left. Because I mean, we're not even just talking about liberals. We're talking about. If you disagree with them, they don't even want to hear it. There's no other side. If you're the other side, you're racist, you're sexist, or whatever, like the things we're talking about. So they don't want to hear from you. Like there's no point in hearing from you because you're just wrong. Yeah. So I think he's surrounded by so many people like that. To even where when there was that thing that happened with the New York Post with the Hunter Biden story, I remember that accounts got banned or whatever from that because they retweeted it. And he said that was a mistake. Like we made a mistake. We jumped too quick, and I'm going to look into that. And then they fixed it, and everyone got put back on. Yeah. But I think there are just people at that company and Facebook and YouTube and all these companies that are so far left that they just can't wrap their mind around the idea that you're in a country where if you have another opinion, as long as you're not hurting anybody or damaging anything, you can have that opinion and you can state that opinion. And if you disagree, then you could, like you said, bring in the right information and prove them wrong. But getting rid of speech is never the answer. I think that'll be the demise of this country the day you can't say what you want to say, what's on your mind. I think that'll be the demise of this country.
Well, aren't we there? I mean, you kind of let him off the hook a little bit. Well, he's surrounded by people that are very liberal. You know what it's like this. If you believe in something, I mean, if that was the premise that everybody took into life, there'd still be slavery.
True.
People, here's the thing, the people that changed and took away slavery and the people that voted for the Civil Rights Act, those weren't black people. Those were people who weren't affected by it in a way, taking control of the situation. The only way this is going to change if there's people like Jack Dorsey and those that stand up and say, this isn't right and we're going to do the right thing.
True.
And until change won't happen until the non-victims stand up for the victims.
True.
And, and so I don't let those guys off the hook. He could have resigned and said, you know what? I just don't believe in this. I think it's wrong, but he didn't. And it's easy to go, well, it's, he's got all this peer pressure, whatever. Everybody has peer pressure. I mean, you act the way you act if you have integrity because it's the right thing to do, not because you have people pressing on you all the time.
No, you're right. You're right. I just thought from some of the things that he's done, it seems like he's not that far, as far as some of the
He seems moderate. He talks moderately.
Yeah.
And I would agree. I mean, he'd be thrown out. If he would have let Trump back on there, he'd have been thrown out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, because I think corporate America's in bed with Democrats, and I don't understand that because they're totally bad. And I was a Democrat, but most of them are really bad for business. They talk this, we love business, whatever, but then Walz comes out 2 days ago and says, we're going to tax high earners in business more.
Really?
To me, why do you for his budget? Why are you disincentivizing high earners? Those people are high earners, are inventors, they're business owners. Why say, if you work a little harder, we're going to take more of your money for nothing? I mean, that to me, it's like you're just taking away the incentive to do more. I mean, if I said to you, you can make 150,000 by working 40 hours a week, or you can make 200,000 by working, or you can make 120,000 by working 80 hours a week. What are you going to do? I mean, you're going to do the path of least resistance, and that's what government does, and that's what our Democratic governor is trying to do. That guy's a mess. He's bungled this pandemic from day one, and locally, I just, he stuck COVID recovering patients into nursing homes. I don't know if you knew that.
Walz did.
And he killed off, what is it now? 4,000 senior citizens that were in nursing homes. He killed them off. And then now he's forcing our senior citizens to go into a lottery to get a vaccine.
Really?
Oh yeah. They did a lottery for people 65 and older. Yesterday was the lottery. We have to go online and you enter your name. And then today they pick the people who are going to get vaccines.
I thought when Biden got elected that it was just going to be everyone got a vaccine. Like it was like a handout, like go to the grocery store and buy milk. It's like you get the vaccine. Like, I thought it was like it was going to be easy for everyone to get it.
No, and they say there's not enough supplies. To me, I think that's hooey. These states individually could go buy these supplies. They could do these things. Walz is, it's not just Walz, but his administration has really just bungled this whole thing to the point where we're probably going to lose 30 to 40% of our restaurants. They could have stayed open, done different things, explain why we wear this mask. Hey, we'll allow the business open, but we're going to enforce masks inside. Can't do that. You walk into a restaurant, hey, you absolutely have to keep your mask on until you sit down, because then coronavirus is in the corner sharpening a knife. Coronavirus, and he or she, don't know, maybe it's both, but he or she is sitting over there with a knife looking at the fattest kid in the room saying, take your mask off. Or you have your mask on. Ooh, you're off limits. I mean, I'll say this. He's got a tough job.
Yeah.
He could have done a lot of things differently, i.e. cooperating with the Senate and the House, and he hasn't. And, when he come out, 4 or 5 months ago and said, well, here's the deal. I'll loosen some of these restrictions if you agree to my budget, if you agree to a mask mandate. And at that point, the Senate said, hey, stick it. If you're not going to, if it's such a serious virus, why are you negotiating those terms?
Yeah.
It just made him look like he was trying to control everything. So, our government has done us no favors. Biden came in and he says 100 million doses in 100 days. Well,
bad start.
Donald Trump was already doing 1 million doses a day anyways. So
yeah, there wasn't much of a difference between his plan and Trump's plan. Like, no. It was like the same exact stuff. But the media will frame it. Media will frame it in a different way. They're asking Joe Biden the tough questions at the press conferences. What color are they going to change the jet to? Like, these are the questions that keep us up at night.
Yeah, I know. Hey, Joe, how's your rescue dog doing in the White House? And that Jen Psaki, I mean, those White House press secretaries, I mean, I think that they send this person that's disposable down to hell to buy those people off of the devil. Yeah. Because when they come up, they're all world-class liars.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I like that Sanders, Huckabee. I like her. I think she's Huckabee Sanders. She seems decent as a person, but she is a world-class liar.
They all are.
And it's like, well, we have alternative facts. I mean, and I listened to that Psaki the other day, and they're coming out. He says he wasn't going to ban fracking, and now he's cut off all the fracking on private or public lands and national lands. And so he has, in essence, banned fracking. And then today, one of his John Kerry says, well, they can get a better job in solar. Well, thanks for, again, government, thanks for permission to give up the job I've had for 20 years.
Yep.
The thing that keeps our gas price around $2 a gallon.
Yep.
I mean, it's going to destroy this economy. And what? So we have electric cars. You ever driven one of those shitty piece of crap electric cars?
I thought they were pretty. Are they not cool or what?
Well, I mean, cool. I want an engine that makes a noise. I don't want something that, here's the thing. I'll tell you right now, you mark this down somewhere. I will get hit by one of these electric cars.
Because you can't hear them.
I
have heard that they have to put speakers in them if they're going under a certain speed, so that you can hear them, because that's one of the issues they're worried about, people getting in accidents because you can't even tell they're coming 10 feet away from you.
Well, it's like that. You've seen the TV show The Office.
Yeah.
When Andy pulls up to Dwight in the Prius and he doesn't hear him because he's just floating towards him. And then he pushes him up. And that's when Dwight was cheating with Angela. And he pushes Dwight up against the hedge with his car.
Uh-huh.
Couldn't hear him. He couldn't hear his Prius come. It's like...
That's what was going to happen to you, John.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe. I hope it's not that scenario, but I don't know. I'm not against electric cars, but the technology isn't there yet, and Walz is pushing us towards that too. By 2050, we're going to have all these electric cars and whatever. I mean, you're going to run what are now diesel or gasoline or diesel combines, diesel tractors. You're going to run all that on electric. You know how much power it takes to run those PTOs and their equipment? It won't work. And what you're doing is forcing our economy to change when Iowa, Wisconsin, South Dakota, they're just not going to do it. And it puts us at a disadvantage. And Minnesota doesn't need more business disadvantage. We're taxed to hell anyways.
Here's my biggest opposition to all that. People say, well, are you against all the, are you anti-climate change, anti-all? It's like, listen, we could stop doing gas cars and all gas and oil tomorrow. Guess who's going to keep doing it? Russia, China, all these countries are going to keep doing it, and they're going to double down, and we're going to be sitting here paying, double, triple what we're paying now for energy, while all these other countries are going to continue to pollute. So why are we going to all suffer, and hundreds of thousands, millions of people are going to lose their jobs? And they say, oh, well, they'll make new jobs. It's not that easy. It's really not that easy. So that's my biggest...
technology isn't there.
No. My biggest opposition is we can't completely shut down our country when the rest of the world is going to keep doing the same exact thing. That's just not realistic at all. But I'm not that surprised that that's what their direction is.
Well, just let them keep screwing things up. My thing is this: they can keep screwing it up. and hopefully it doesn't mean the ruin of all of us before someone else gets in there.
That's
but
what
you
I'm
know, this
saying.
another episode we could talk about who the heck is going to run for president in 4 years.
Oh my!
I mean, you know, we could spend an hour and a half talking. That's my son. He should be sleeping, but he gets super angry at his iPad, and so that's the babysitter right now.
One more thing, John. The biggest other news article thing going on right now seems to be about the Keystone Pipeline. About all the people losing their jobs. Biden, I think, came in day one and just said, "Done. It's done. Forget about it." What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's the same as the other stuff. You know, Obama put a kibosh on that, and then Trump came in and said, "Nope, that's cool." So they started building it, and it's creating jobs. And it's, you know, what that Keystone Pipeline is for is pumping shale oil from Canada to the refineries in the United States. That's what that's for. It's all shale oil. Which, I mean, if it leaks, is a mess. They've improved pipeline technology to the point where that doesn't happen a lot. And, you know, at the end of the day, you know, this is going to cost us, it could cost us a big bulk of our economy when it comes to energy independence. And, you know, people don't know this, but you can Google it. It's a true fact. You know, the Obama-Biden presidency was responsible for more drone deaths to innocent people than any other presidency.
Really?
They droned more people in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria to death than any other president. The Obama-Biden presidency deported almost 4 million people. In fact, there's people who were human rights people that called Obama the deporter in chief. And so when he talks about saving all these lives, what about people that you killed in Iraq and Afghanistan? People that weren't American, that didn't look like us, but were still human lives. And so Biden is the worst kind of president because he's just a sneaky, backstabbing liar. And, you know, he lied on that campaign trail, and he lied and he lied. And all the media could do was say, Trump's a liar, Trump's a liar. You know, Biden said day one, I'm not going to frack anymore. And we're not going to, then he says, no, I never said that. I'm in Pennsylvania. I love fracking. And it's like, people hated the orange-haired man so much that they wanted the devil in front of him, not the devil next to him. And I just, you know, I guess, you know, someone said a long time ago that, you know, when democracy, right or wrong, you get what you deserve, nice and hard in the end. And so we're, you know, that's what it is. We're getting it nice and hard right now. These people are, you know, I'll give Biden a chance to do whatever.
That's what I say. Yeah. Give him a chance at least.
Well, we got to hope for the best because we got to deal with it.
Yeah.
Well, and especially, let's be honest, you know, now they're talking about making DC a state. And that's a Democrat ploy to add more votes, more electoral votes for the Democrats.
Yeah.
They're talking about making Puerto Rico a state. That's another one of those things. They're talking about, you know, eliminating the filibuster, all these different things the Democrats think are a good idea. You know, like I told you earlier, push the other side so much. And you're going to start seeing, I mean, who would have thought an attack on the Capitol would have happened in the last 10 years? I mean, it's all foreign terrorists, whatever. We have terrorists in this country.
Yeah.
And, you know, and you know what you're doing, like when you call regular people that are Republicans, you call them white supremacists. You know what you're doing? You're pushing them to extremism.
Prodding them. And
yeah, because they're not going to believe the person who calls them a white supremacist. They're going to believe the people who are good people but have similar ideas.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know when being white in this country became some sort of crime or thing that was terrible. I don't know when that happened. It's a sad state of affairs. You know, because I believe most people aren't racist. I believe that. And I believe this is a good country. And I think that's a lot of what Trump was saying too. This is a good country filled with good people. And it's just kind of sad that, you know, we all get lumped into that same group. I mean, that Capitol attack was horrible and those people should go to prison.
Yep.
But to say that, you know, because I vote a certain way or you vote a certain way or whatever, that we support those ideas. I mean, it's no different than saying all that, you know, BLM stuff and those riots and whatever, that all black people or all people of color support that. Most of them don't.
No.
I mean, they're sitting there trying to stop that in their own neighborhoods. It's just, when you start being general with people and using this identity politics to describe who people are as a group, individual people, that'll lose every time. So I think that Keystone thing is a big disaster. And even Justin Trudeau is the biggest tree hugger prime minister in the history of Canada. Said, this is terrible. It's going to wreck our economy. They know what's at stake. They're pumping 1 billion gallons of oil a day out of there. I mean, what are they going to say? Where's it going to go? We're going to load it on diesel trucks and haul it down here now?
It's crazy. And
I mean,
I've heard that the reason that they're doing that, the reason that they're cutting the pipeline is they're thinking, well, where's another place we could go to get this oil that Biden and Obama seem obsessed with? It's in the middle of the country, or the middle of the world, Middle East. They're going to go right back over there and do what they like doing, which is taking oil from that. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That's
in Syria and all those different countries. What are you doing? I mean, why are we giving any money to people who just hate us? And there's a lot of people, governments that hate us over there.
Yeah.
I mean, having energy independence was the first thing that happened. It's the first time in 150 years we had energy independence here. Why would we stop that? I mean, you can address climate change. Look at what we've done in the past 20 years. I remember as a kid, they were talking about things like acid rain. You ever heard of acid rain before? The environment was so bad over big cities. The environment was so bad. This is literal.
Yeah.
That when it would rain, the stuff would fall from the factories and it would destroy crops. It would wreck water.
Really?
I mean, literally acid in the rain. We've eliminated all that kind of stuff. They don't have acid rain around here anymore. I mean, those things have been changed. So to say that, the world's falling apart and there's all this climate change, I mean, to me, I don't trust it. You follow the money. Things like wind turbines, when those reach the end of their life, they have to take those giant blades and they have to bury them because they can't be recycled.
Really?
There's in South Dakota or southern Iowa, there's a whole landfill it's like 15 acres that's filled with these turbine blades.
Wow.
And so that's your green. That's your green. Yeah, that's your green energy. Just Google that time. Wind turbine blades in landfills. It's all over the place. The green energy people, they don't want to talk about it.
Why do they? Why do they need to get new blades? Why do they weather or what?
Well, weather. They're a fiberglass type material. They break down in the sun.
Oh.
And so they're not indestructible, and they're not all made of steel. They're a fiberglass plastic mix. And it's to the point where they can't melt it out enough to recycle it.
Really? Yeah, they don't.
Really bad for the economy.
They don't. I have never heard that before. I have never heard that before. And
all this stuff that I bring to you.
Yep.
I mean,
you're the goal. You're the Messiah here, John. You're bringing us the truth.
Well, I bring you a lot of stuff.
You're the Ethan Clerc show god.
Yeah, you're the god of the Ethan Clerc.
I should just be the fact checker over here. No, actually, Ethan, back in 1976,
they were dumping radiation. Well, no wonder we're so messed up. We have radiation in our skin. Wyndham and Jackson from the water that they dumped, the military.
You Googled it. That's a real thing.
I looked it up. I looked it up. I couldn't find anything on it. You're gonna have to send me.
I'll get you some stuff. No, I'll get you some stuff. I mean, the U.S. government used to do that. They would dust places with radiation to see how it would affect things. And of course, they don't tell anybody till years later when you got a cluster of people with tumors in their side.
Oh, I mean,
we may have done this, or maybe an army person, breaks confidentiality and says, "Oh yeah, we were doing this for years."
I mean, I'm not that surprised because the government has done multiple things to negatively affect us over the past 150, 200 years. I mean, there are so many different things we could list that the government. It wasn't they started a war, or they did a war against themselves so that they could invade. Was it Cuba or some other country where they attacked themselves so that they could actually attack the country for real?
Well, when I was down in Barbados, this was years ago. They were telling the story, like the Malibu rum factory and the Captain Morgan, those rum factories.
Yeah.
They were all created so that they could, what they were doing is they were taking sugar and they were converting it to rum. My son's up watching the movie. They're converting it to, I don't watch Moana. They were converting it to rum, and then they were selling that rum, and they were selling that rum up in Canada and taking the rum money and then funneling it back to anti-Cuban Castro people.
Really?
And so they were in the middle of, those factories were built. Those farms were built to funnel money back through Canada to the anti-Castro people.
A little bit
our government was trying to overthrow Cuba for years and years.
A little bit like the Iran-Contra situation, a little bit, things going on, secrets, like things we don't know about the government.
Yeah.
That's maybe why people don't trust the government so much, John, is because of the negative things the government has done in the past. It's hard to trust a government like that.
Well, there's things they do every day that keep us safe.
True.
That I don't think I'd want to know.
Yeah.
I mean, the things they tell us about these covert Navy SEAL stuff, taking out this person, taking out this person. I mean, there's things that every government does every day to protect their people.
Yeah.
And I mean, I respect the fact they're not going to tell us everything. But when it does come out and whatever, stand up then.
Yeah.
And say, yeah, we did it. Here's why we did it. And if there's an accountability, have it. I mean, it's like the Kennedy assassination. I don't think anybody believes it was just Lee Harvey Oswald. I mean, the guy was basically a dipshit, and he wasn't that good of a shot. Well, he wasn't. Even his Marine said, this Marine people said, no, he wasn't that good of a shot.
Yep.
But yet he takes 3 shots with a bolt action rifle that even the experts couldn't even replicate it.
Yep. That's a whole nother episode right there. That's a huge conspiracy theory.
No, that is that. And if you only watch that JFK, that Oliver Stone movie, have you seen that?
No. What is that, propaganda?
Well, basically, Oliver Stone's a big lefty, and he's got like different, takes on. It's just, you'll have to watch it. But basically, the stuff he presents totally disregards some of the stuff that it's about. But when you watch that movie, you think, oh my God, there were multiple people trying to kill JFK. Probably. I mean, who's the person that had the most to gain from killing JFK? Who's probably the person that had the most? Lyndon Johnson, his vice president. Who else had more to gain?
Yeah, true.
I mean, and the problem with Kennedy is he was involved with a lot of, he's involved with gangsters in Chicago, New York. His family was tied into bootlegging back a long time ago. His dad, he tried to, take out Cuba. So he had Castro people that wanted him killed. And then he didn't go far enough. He backed out of Cuba, and that pissed off the anti-Castro people because they wanted his help. I mean, there were that's the problem, is he muddied the waters. There were a lot of people that didn't want him around, and he was expendable. So,
well, like I said, we need to have you back on because we could go deep with that for sure. One more question though, John. This is something new we're doing. We're asking all the guests we've had on, because we're it's kind of tying it together, is if you could go back and tell your 21-year-old self something, what would it be? A word of advice, anything. It could be anything you want. If you could go back and tell your 21-year-old self.
I can't say what I want to say.
Oh, of course you can. It's a free speech show, John.
I'm starting to mend relationships with people. I had that thing. Which I never do, but almost, I wouldn't say almost dying, but being super sick and thinking you're going to die changes your perspective. I would say this, probably, and this is not exciting, but I would just say, take care of yourself physically better. Don't resist the urges to do the things that you think are maybe funny or cute, or, try to find more mature people. Because I think even then, I was 21, I was mayor. My first day as mayor, 6 people died in a house fire here.
Really?
And so that's what I was doing at 21. So I was a little different than most people.
Uh-huh.
But even then, I think if I could go back, I would have taken care of myself physically better, because I think it would have made a difference in my life to be in a little better shape. I know that's kind of boring and whatever.
No, that's good. That's good.
I don't know if I'd have gotten married. Maybe that's, don't get married. I'm here to show you, if you get married, this is, it's kind of like that, the Ghost of Christmas Past thing.
Yeah.
But it's like this. I got, I was married for 13 years. I got 3 great kids out of it. And, I think some of that, it's kind of that, if you had to avoid some of that stuff taught you real lessons.
Yep.
And so you wouldn't have gotten those lessons that maybe made your life better.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I don't know. I think another tidbit of wisdom is this. I mean, I'm a person who doesn't look back on a lot of stuff too closely, because it just, like this stuff with my dad, what if I'd have been well, or if I could have helped him with his treatments or been there. It just makes you feel terrible.
Yeah.
And it's not living in reality. I think one of the things that hospital taught me is, well, life is for the living. And, if you get, I feel like I got a second chance in life, and I'm trying to be more positive. I'm trying to lift people up more. It doesn't mean I don't criticize people or I'm not involved, but I'm just trying to make people feel better about their own situations. I mean, life is too short. And, with Ceylon Area First, we've tried to do a bunch of different things and try to make people's lives better, whether it's, throwing free community meals or whatever. We're just, I don't know. I mean, I think everybody should take a little time out of their lives and try to give back, whether that's volunteering or, just being kind to people. I mean, before I got sick, I went into a store and there was a lady there and I paid for all her groceries. And it's just, it wasn't a ton of money, $50, but it's just a gesture that people feel better about, just our, human species in general. There's not enough of that. Just a little gesture can change a person's day. Yeah. And so I hope people, I guess, I don't know. That's a tough question. I'm glad you asked it. I probably gave a boring answer, but
no, I think that's a good answer, and I think in general it's a good bring it all together, because right now in the political climate we're in, it's like hard to find moments like that where people actually care about each other, because it seems like we're the most divided. we've ever been as a country. So finding things like that,
it's
you know,
everything's so personal anymore. It's like Governor Walz and I've known Governor Walz 20 years. Him and I rarely agree on things. I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he's a guy that was in over his head.
Yep.
And which doesn't mean I don't like him. It just means that I think it'd have been hard for anybody, but I just think he was a little over his head. And, I don't tell people, oh, he's just a terrible guy. He's not a terrible guy. I think he's actually a pretty decent guy.
Yeah.
I don't agree with his ideas, but here's the point. We can all fight and argue and be nasty to each other, or I can take a minute to try to understand what you mean.
Exactly. Yep.
Instead of just saying, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Take a minute, try to understand their point of view. You may not agree with it still, but at least you know their motives. And do we ever try to figure out why did someone do what they did? That's important.
People don't do that anymore.
It's important to know.
People don't
do that. No, they don't. And they just throw people down the rat hole and say, well, you're part of this group, whatever. Well, that's the reason this country has the problems it has, is we don't take enough time to be patient and just try to figure out, why is someone saying what they're saying? Are they scared? Are they afraid? What motivates them? And if we just take a little more time as humans, each of us doing that, I think we'd be better off.
Yeah. Well, that's a great way to end it here, John. And I want to thank you very much for coming back on. We need to get you back here in person for the next one when you come on, and we can actually get some beers going and talk about some conspiracy theories, because we talked a lot of politics tonight, but it'd be fun to actually dive into more Illuminati, government, New World Order stuff, because people loved that last time. So we'll have to.
Well, and I kind of pissed on it this time. I still believe in some conspiracies, but I'm just trying to stay so positive. No one's out to get you. But in reality, I told someone the other day, I said, when I was in the hospital, I know there were people with that John Jabot voodoo doll, and they were poking the shit out of him. And they were like, we finally got him.
Yep.
And all it took was the kung flu to get rid of him. Can I say that?
Of course. No, you can say whatever. You can say anything you want.
Shanghai shivers. I called it in the hospital. I called it the Shanghai shivers.
Really?
And so I'll tell you this. One of the nurses that came in real quickly, she says, I need to check your temperature. And it's just this thing boop, boop, behind the ear,
Yep.
They're probably $1 million, but I wish I had one. And so I said, hey, I got a question for you. It's a medical question. And she says, what? And I said, can you tell me the difference between a oral thermometer, one in your mouth, and a rectal thermometer? And she looked at me and I go, taste. And she was like, okay, well, I'm out of here. I mean, I was trying to throw some humor into the place.
Yeah.
Like, here's Corona guy. She's just basically holding her breath so I don't kill her.
Yep.
And I always said, if I'm in the hospital, I'm going to use that joke.
Yep. That's a good one. That's a good one.
I know you think it's funny. See, that's the reason we're all creeps, because we have similar, sense of humors.
We're men.
That's not a knock on anybody. We're just creepy.
Yeah.
And that's one of my enduring traits. And so, yeah, I'm glad you laughed, because I thought it was funny.
That's a good one. Well, John, we need to thank you so much for coming on. This has been a great episode.
Yeah, always good seeing you, John.
Yeah, good. And God bless you guys. I hope you stay healthy. Like I said, just take care of yourselves.
Thanks.
I'm taking a multivitamin every day, and, try to eat right too. And that's the other thing the doctor said. He said people with poor diets end up getting a lot sicker. So that's the message. Wear your mask, eat right, take some vitamins if you're inclined, and just try to take care of yourself. Don't take unnecessary risks. And next time, by the way, one more thing. Next time you guys go on one of those adventures or whatever, why don't I never get the invite?
Come with.
Like, I'm the guy. If you say jump across that building, I'm the guy that'll do it.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, maybe not a building, but maybe a small crack. Maybe a small crack in the floor.
Yeah. There we go.
I'm willing to take the risk.
All right, you're coming with. Yeah. Well, that was a great episode with John Jabot. He's always fun to have on. Talks about a lot of different political stuff. We didn't get too much into conspiracies, but I mean, some people might consider that stuff conspiracies. But hopefully when John comes back on, we can get him here and talk about some government, New World Order, Bohemian Grove.
Yeah, I think we got some ideas for next time we get him on.
Oh, for sure.
Good seeing him, though.
It was fun, and horrible things about his dad dying and about him getting really sick, but I think from now, things are going to change. Hopefully, with the vaccine getting more and more out there, even though it's not moving quick enough. Hopefully, people can get it, and we can actually start opening things up for real, and things will go back to somewhat normal. So next week, though, Cam Casey, who was supposed to be on this week, couldn't come on, so we're having him on next week. So that'll be fun. Looking forward to hearing his story. If you don't know who that is, you can look him up on TikTok. Snapchat spotlight.
It's Cam Casey.
He's pretty well known in the social media world. So check him out. Otherwise, we'll be back next week. This is the Clerc podcast show.